Children and young people are our nation's most precious resource. They're the lifeblood for the future. They're a living message to a time we will not see. Unless we look after our children and young people, we will not have a successful country in the future. It's in our best interests to make sure children are seen as citizens now, not people of the future, with rights and entitlements, and also very important things to say about their lives. So I welcome this focus, as I say, for the first time in 50 years that we have this policy. I welcome the challenges. It's up to us to make it happen. Well, the starting point has to be a clear description and definition of policy, which is what we have. And that policy hasn't arisen out of thin air. For my own responsibility of creating the National Service Framework, we worked for 3 years with well over 300 colleagues across the whole of the country and with children and young people themselves to find out what they wanted from services. And when you listen to the families of children with disability, they're incandescent about the quagmires they have to walk through to get their entitlements and to get cohesive and conjoined services. So this policy really is important. The challenge, as you rightly say, is getting people at the front line to recognise its importance, above all to change the way they deliver services. And the way we want them to think about it is, first of all, putting the child at the centre of services, not, as we have so often at the moment, services and children follow, putting the child at the centre of services and seeing services through the child's eyes. The second point is making sure we're looking not just at the disease or the protection of children, but how all services contribute to the child's life, education, health and social care. And then finally, and by far the most important change in culture, is thinking about a needs-based approach to the design of services and not a service-based approach to services. And what this means is asking people to take a child's journey through an illness or through a circumstance, saying what are the milestones that we expect this child to go through? What then are the needs of the child and the carer at each of those milestones, and then what are the competencies around which we can design new ways of thinking of services. A huge challenge to the traditional way we have been bunkered in thinking about our services.
It's about designing services in the interests of those lives, not in terms of the interests of the professional. So you start to move across different services and say, well, what can education do for health? And indeed, what can health do for education? I mean, you can almost see this as a sequence of things. To be able to achieve economic well-being, you've got to enjoy and achieve. But to be able to enjoy and achieve, you've got to feel safe and secure, and you've got to be healthy to do it. There are 5 different outcomes, but they all span the life of the child. And if everybody is working and seeing what they can do against those different outcomes, then you've got people making the right decisions about how they approach delivering on those outcomes, and that is going to minimise the chances of children and young people falling through the gaps that must exist between the services, the health service, the education service, the police service and so on.
I think the thing I have to keep reminding myself of is don't get caught in any preconceptions about how you do it. I think you start off with the outcomes and you constantly are testing back and working and looking at what you do and how it relates. And I think that actually the beauty of that is it applies at every level. It applies at the level of being an individual practitioner and saying, actually, how do I do my job? And it applies at the most senior manager level, which is about how do I organise and manage my department. I think the challenge for senior managers and for middle managers actually is to be really brave and to actually just think outside their own particular box and be prepared to look at radical solutions which actually ostensibly may not be those which, you know, benefit immediately their particular organisation.
Perhaps part of the problem in previous years has been that we've all assumed that we're doing the right thing, and we assume because we're spending a hell of a lot of money on a problem that we must be helping it in some way or another. But we've not been very good at actually checking with children that it is helping and that it is making a difference. And I think the Every Child Matters framework assists that process. It really puts the emphasis on projects to check with their own children that they are meeting those outcomes and that children are seeing a difference in their lives.
All local authorities are required to have a Children's Trust by 2008 and most are required to have one by 2006.
Children's trusts are the means by which the professionals, the services can get together and decide collectively how they can change things and work together more effectively to achieve the outcomes that were set out in the outcomes framework.
What we have to do is to ensure that the various groups, the various partners, are able to deliver their element of the service to children and young people. And the people around the table are all of sufficiently senior rank within their own organisations that they are able to issue a commitment to a certain course of action. I think if we had individuals of, I don't like this term, lower rank, but if we had individuals at a lower level in the organisations, then they would have to return to get authority to have decisions signed off. What we actually achieve is shortcutting this, because we have everybody there is empowered to make a decision.
The only one that I'm unclear about is, where does the budget fit? In terms of underpinning the plan.
You've got right to the heart of the matter, Peter.
It's the value for money issue.
Right, thank you, Peter, because one of the things I realised I hadn't said was we haven't...
Ultimately, what the Trust is trying to do is to influence outcomes for children and young people and their families. So to make a difference, a tangible difference for the better to their lives. And what I think is interesting about the outcomes approach is that it starts from that point. It doesn't start from the point of how services should best be organised or who should deliver particular services, but it starts at the end point, if you like, with the user of those services, and looks at what we're trying to achieve.
The improvement cycle is a way of trying to connect up all of the people who have a strong interest in how we improve the performance of public services for children and young people. That's people running the show, managing performance, people inspecting them and assessing performance, and the media and government and the universities trying to influence how well they perform. It's a kind of, how to think of it, as a sort of impassive force almost, that's got three elements, and that's simplifying for effect, because we all need to simplify a complicated world that we're living in. But you have all these various influences going on. It's about how you tie them all together. So there isn't one thing that's driving it. There are those three things at least: assessing performance, influencing performance, managing performance, that are driving how the system works. And if those three are connected up, then you're going to get a better bang for your buck ultimately than you would have if they were all separate. It is very ambitious. The whole policy is hugely ambitious, and it's outcomes framework, children's trust improvement cycle, all the three main planks of how it works together, is an enormous culture change, not just for the professionals involved, but for how services are organised, much more participation of young people and parents and families and carers and so on. It's a huge challenge to everybody involved.
My biggest hope and aspiration is that people who are involved in working with children and young people, that next time they're sat behind a desk doing something that they think is totally boring and irrelevant, that they just stop doing it and they go and they spend half an hour just talking to a child or a young person and asking them about their experience. And they'll learn probably more from doing that than anything else.
It's very early days. In terms of direct service delivery, I think if you went and talked to a child, young person or whatever, they would say, can't spot the difference. But I think the potential for us transforming services is the best that it's ever been.
I'm absolutely passionate about it. I've worked all my life with children and young people. They're our future. People of my generation, while we have to work to make things better for them, they may need our expertise at the moment, but they are the future of our society, not just the country, but they're the future of the world. And we have to give them the best possible chance and the best possible start.
As I listen to children and young people, even very young children, they've got really important things to say about their lives, and we have not been asking, let alone listening to them, for far too long. I want to see them mainstreamed so they are engaged in making decisions that affect them. I'm distressed and very dismayed, I have to say, as I tour the country, to find out how many staff in all these sectors have not read these very, very important statements of policy. They must understand them, and they must start, through their leaders and through their working together, create pressure at the local level for change, to actually make it happen. They also need to celebrate what they're doing well. I go to a place and I say, please tell me what you're doing well. The immediate reaction is, sorry Al, here's 40 things wrong, we don't know about what we're doing well. But every place I go to has got something doing well. So let's celebrate what we're doing well and learn from each other and spread best practice.